Dude, are they even trying to make Brett Cooper's office setup look like it's her bedroom and she's just some lady live streaming and recording and uploading on YouTube? Like, I guess now that she's got the Daily Wire watermark in her videos, she can't really pretend like she's not part of a massive corporation. So they're kind of more professionalizing her background. But for quite some time, her background was made to look like a bedroom, so that it would be given the impression that she's just, like, streaming from her bedroom, but it's an office in the Daily Wire office building, which is a really weird, like, level of dishonesty to engage in. Like, it's unnecessary and also quite shameless when you know why they're trying to do it. Anyway, this video is called Lululemon's Founder Triggers Large Women. For those who don't know, for a very long time, fat people have been one of the few groups that it's pretty much unanimously okay, quote-unquote, to shit on. Even in, like common, polite society. To this day, people who are overweight are probably one of the most, like, derided without the ability to defend themselves, without, like, being further shit on, than any other group that I can really think of. Like, even trans people, I feel like, are able to defend themselves a little more in our society than people who are overweight. Like, watch any modern movie, and, like, they're filled with jokes that are supposed to be derisive towards fat people, right? Like, this implication that someone who's fat has let themselves go and is, you know, like, the idea that being fat is indicative of moral failing is very common. And so, I really don't like that idea. The fact is, and I really like research on nutrition stuff, and I know I may not look like it, but I really enjoy workout content. Like, roughly 20% of my YouTube content consumption is workout lifting YouTube. So like Greg Doucette and whatnot, like those YouTubers. And something that's been pretty unanimously found is that your habits in regards to eating, which are a very big factor for, you know, how much weight you gain. Obviously, your genetics play a big factor, but obviously you need to put the calories into your body to create fat in the first place. And a lot of people's eating habits, this is like how much they tend to eat, how often they tend to eat, and at what times, which can have a big, you know, impact on, you know, how much weight you gain, what lifestyle you have around eating, and how much you eat, just like what food you prefer, whether you prefer junk food or more clean food. All of these things are habits that are really hard to break, which are formed in youth. Many parents understand this already, such as, you know, my mom, for example. She specifically knew that, yeah, your kid will grow up to have very similar tastes to what they have as a kid, and you can develop their tastes as a baby. And so my mom specifically made sure not to feed me much junk food. I could count on two hands how often I had McDonald's as a kid that my mom got me. It wasn't often. It happened, but like usually it's like a fuck, you're like, I'm in a really big rush to get you to school, we're running late, you need to eat, so I'm gonna quickly run to the McDonald's drive-thru and get you something, like that kind of thing. But outside of that, usually she didn't buy me unhealthy things to snack on. Instead, it was like carrot sticks or celery or broccoli or grapes. Usually I was eating like chicken and like steak and like actual meat. And like my mom would work hard to make sure that I was able to eat a healthy diet as a kid. And because I ate such a healthy diet as a kid, that developed my palate and my habits to be much healthier. It's why I'm, you know, obviously I could actually do to gain a few pounds, to be honest with you guys. However, it's a big part of why I've never really had legitimate problems with becoming overweight, is that most of my habits with eating were developed when I was a kid, and I was lucky enough that they were good eating habits. So I've never known a life where I am used to eating junk food and not doing so feels wrong. Because for me, eating lots of junk food feels wrong on multiple levels, and I end up being averted to it, and it feels kind of gross to me after a while. I imagine for many people it's the other way around. Like, for example, actually, I know a very good example of this. I'm not a big fan of Asmongold these days. I'm kind of the opposite, considering he's literally gone full chud lately. However, this is still a really funny video. Asmongold eats fruit for the first time. That's right, I'm not joking. 20-something, 30-something-year-old man, never having eaten fruit before, eats it for the first time for a video where they do a tier list of all the fruit. This guy's eaten nothing but snack foods wrapped up in plastic packages and fast food his entire fucking life. Obviously, he doesn't look like it, but, like, he's got a fast metabolism, and he probably doesn't eat big meals. But still, this dude is very unhealthy. He is an example of not healthy at any size, okay? Because this dude may not be fat, but on the inside, he is just as unhealthy as people who are fat phobic say fat people are, okay? So yeah, he's rarely ever had fruit in his life. Like, he's had it like 1 or 2 bites of fruit before, and this is his first time having it. I'll play one here. Do you want to see his reaction to eating an apple? Here's him eating an apple for the first time.
There's no way you don't like that.
Is this too big of a piece?
Yes.
Too big?
He's disgusted by the fruit, by the way. He refuses to have more than like a chip of it, like a tiny little nibble of it.
That's incredible.
It's massive.
So I'm gonna walk you through it. It's gonna be a little bit of citrus taste. The texture's gonna be pretty crispy, and just think sweet and a little bit sour.
Okay. All right. Yeah. There's no way I'm gonna eat that whole piece. I'm gonna have to eat all of these. I ain't eating big pieces at all. We're gonna eat this.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Why has it got the skin on it?
It's good. It adds extra texture.
Texture of what?
It gives you like a nice.
I don't
little
like
firm,
the apple
firm
skin.
little bite. It's like a steak. Oh come on, bro.
He hates almost every fruit he eats. I don't think there's any that he likes enough to ever like eat again.
It's not that.
Later on in the video, he genuinely starts to look sick. Like, he starts to like genuinely change color to like a really sick looking complexion, and he starts to look like he's fighting to hold back vomit. Like, he's actually getting sick from eating fruit for the first time in his life. Like, it's actually making him sick because it's not junk food or grease. To be clear, a lot of people's diet habits are pretty much out of their control. Now, this doesn't mean you can't change your diet habits. This doesn't mean you can't make them better or, you know, like change your health for the better. Many people have done it. The problem is that what you're asking for is a lot harder than a lot of people will imply or will let on. And on top of that, there seems to be a lot of moral judgment for this thing that is literally out of the control of most of these people. Like, most people who are overweight now, as an adult, were overweight as kids. You could say that when they were kids, they were irresponsible because they ate unhealthily, but at the end of the day, children are fed by their parents, okay? They're fed by their legal guardian, I should say. Maybe it's not always parents. And childhood obesity is becoming more and more and more and more common. So a lot of these people were kids when they were overweight, and now they're overweight as adults. You can't say that, like, this is some moral failing of them that they've had since they were children. I'm not saying it's completely out of their control. I'm just trying to argue that you should try to have as much empathy as possible for people who you can't necessarily relate to the experience of. And I feel like fat people are a group that is possibly the most acceptable in society right now to just shit on mercilessly and for no reason other than their appearance. And I would actually argue it is a trait that is somewhat discriminatory to go after, because while it's not something that can't be changed, it's something that many people never chose. Yes, it's also heavily tied into the effects of poverty, so you could argue there's an element of classism to it, but I feel like I'm trying to keep it pretty surface level right now. And this is why for a long time, fat phobia has always bothered me. And I mean, it's always bothered me. I don't want to tell an everyone clapped story here, but this is a legitimately true story. When I was in middle school, my best friend was a bit on the chunkier side, but he was my best friend. He was my bro. He was my best bro. We always hung out at lunch on the way to our classes. We got into Minecraft, at the same time. This is around the time I got into Minecraft, and so we played it a lot together. like I said, he was a bit on the chunkier side, and he would get bullied for it. And one day we were on the school bus on our way back to our individual stops, and the kid behind us, I forget what his name was, but he was just a massive cunt. He caused multiple problems for me and him throughout like multiple years. I just don't even remember his name at this point. But his mom was a teacher, which gave him a lot of like freedom to do a lot of bad shit. He would regularly harass my friend for being fat. And I like cussed him the fuck out one time because it just really upset me. And from that point on, after seeing how rude and awful people are towards people who are just completely like my friend Sean was a great guy. He was really nice. He was really cool. I named him. Oh no, I doxed him. He was a really nice guy. His name was Sean. And he would get harassed for his weight. And I was just like, I watched it happen, and I kind of experienced it via proxy because I was like his best friend and we were always hanging out. And it upset me so much that from that point on, I've always kind of had this annoyance for fat phobia. I've always kind of been anti-fat phobia, even in my chud days, because of that experience I went through. I hope your old buddy's doing okay now. I'm sure they're doing okay, but it's been a long time since I ever talked to them. This was 6th grade when this happened. But ever since then, I've kind of had like a real pet peeve for fat phobia, so I have no doubt this video is going to be really annoying. But who knows? Sometimes Brett Cooper tries to play like the viral bait e-girl character where she doesn't go all the way balls deep into being hyper-conservative far-right with her rhetoric, and she sometimes plays like a surprisingly human character for some videos that are meant to be virality bait like this. So for all we know, she might actually repeat a lot of what I've already said here, which would surprise me, but I'm more so expecting her to go into full-on like just shitting on fat people because it's fun for her. Yeah.
The comment section. I'm Brett Cooper. As you might notice behind me, I am not in my old set. It's a new year.
Noticed.
It's 2024. I'm back in Nashville after spending 5 very long months in Budapest filming Pendragon, and I came...
Nashville is where the Daily Wire offices are, by the way. At least she's being honest about this being a set and a studio inside of the offices of the Daily Wire in Nashville.
Back to a completely new, renovated set. It's amazing. I hope you guys like it. We'll do a tour, at least on TikTok. I could do a little tour because there's some fun Easter eggs in here. It's very, very cool. My team did an excellent job while I was gone.
Of course, they had to include like the white nationalist, like marble statue dude. Yeah, you got to have one of these like Nazi, like marble statue sunglasses Groiper memes in there that you see the alt-righters on Twitter have as their profile picture.
It's amazing. I hope you guys like it. We'll do a tour, at least on TikTok. I could do a little tour because there's some fun Easter eggs in here. It's very, very cool. My team did an excellent job while I was gone.
There's
I
definitely
hope you guys love it as much as I do.
There's some fun Easter eggs in there. No, Zan, that's Vaporwave. Twitter Nazis and the alt-right have claimed that Vaporwave shit with the statues and the statue busts or whatever and the sunglasses and the Vaporwave aesthetic. They let the Groipers have that shit. It's beyond cringe. I don't like that style anyway. I like that really cringy gay-ass style, and I mean that in the straight way. Gay as in straight, because no gay person would dress like that, because gay people have fashion sense. That fucking style, that cringe, straight-ass style, I like as like a marker for, yep, that's a Groiper, that's an alt-righter, that's a chud. I like it. I like that they mark themselves with a very cringe display of who they are. So no, I do not want to reclaim Vaporwave from the far right. Let them have Vaporwave. I hate Vaporwave. I hate the aesthetic. I hate the style. I hate the clothing. And I think it's cringe. Nope. Let them have Vaporwave. Let them have Vaporwave because I want Vaporwave to die. Everything the Nazis claim ends up dying if it doesn't get reclaimed, and I want Vaporwave to die. Let Vaporwave die. Let Vaporwave die. Fuck Nazis for ruining Vaporwave. No, Vaporwave is cringe. It is cringe, and I don't like it.
But enough about that. We have a fun story to dive into today. If there's one thing we've learned, it's that in business, pandering progressive ideologies often backfires. I mean, take the Bud Light example, Peloton recently, Disney, everything that Bob Iger has been saying over the past couple of weeks. And after the past few years...
I like this implication that all these companies are like failing. I know that Bud Light is down with all beer sales across the board, consistent with like like all beer sales from all companies that sell beer across the board are down at the moment, and Bud Light's currently being down, or like Anheuser-Busch's being down right now, is on par with those other beer companies. However, if you go back to like 4 or 5, 6 months ago, which was like 6 months after the boycott, Anheuser-Busch had pretty much recovered. A bunch of lefties that I know bought stocks in Anheuser-Busch when it got like raided by the right and like the stocks dropped, and like bought in and have made a bunch of money back from that investment because they bought while it was low. So really, what that boycott did was make a bunch of progressives money because they knew the stock would bounce back, and this is a dip that's pretty worth buying if they're into stocks. You realize if we give the conservative vaporwave, it's all you'll hear for the next 10 years? Yeah, and we'll know it's Nazi shit. What do you mean? Like, Nazis are always doing their shit. What are you talking about?
Of failed campaigns and customer boycotts and realizing the DEI does more harm than good, a lot of companies are scaling back this BS, which is incredibly good because at the end of the day...
I love when like these right-wing channels make claims like a lot of these companies are actually scaling back the wokeness right now. We're winning. It's like, okay, so do you have like any evidence for that? Like, for one, they never had any evidence to suggest that like the world and companies are woke to begin with. They could never even define woke to begin with. But now they're just claiming, just trust me, bro. All the companies are scared now and they're stopping to be woke. So they know that their audiences watch their videos because it's rage bait, right? Like, their audiences are in fear that wokeness is taking over and destroying Western culture. If you argue that you're winning, you have to balance it. You can't argue too much that you're winning. Otherwise, you don't make wokeness look like enough of a threat that it's worth constantly supporting your videos to fight against. But you can't also say that everything's so hopeless that your viewers don't feel like it's worth fighting against, too. You have to play that, fascism angle where it's like the enemy is both equally strong and a pathetic, parasitic, easy to destroy, foe, right? Completely contradictory beliefs, but that's what fascism is all about. You kind of have to maintain that balance for an audience of people that are into fascist content in order for them to continue watching.
Business is business, and you need to make money and protect your company. And one businessman is very obviously worried about the direction that his company has been going in, and we're going to talk about that today. Before we do, though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to this channel if you have not already.
Do that for my channel. Do that for my channel instead.
Founded by a man named Chip Wilson. And over the last week, he has made some statements that have seriously ruffled some feathers. But shocker, it's all common sense and nobody should be upset whatsoever. He's not wrong at all. So last week, he said that athletic brands like Lululemon shouldn't be for everyone and that they should be targeting and advertising for one specific type of customer, athletic ones, rather than pushing plus-size inclusivity for a brand that is centered around fitness. Cue the...
It's actually... There was one conservative pundit who impressed me with their take on this topic somewhat recently, and that was Lauren Southern. Of all people, I've seen Lauren Southern multiple times on Twitter shitting on other conservatives making this argument that it's bad when companies that make workout clothes for people who are plus-sized. Like, I've seen Lauren Southern shit on other conservatives for that dumbass argument, of all people. That's surprising, I know. I figure it's worth bringing up how dumb the comment section with Brett Cooper is that, like, the old conservative e-girl from way before has better takes than her. The right-wing rhetoric has gotten worse around this topic over time as new people have entered the space. The funny thing about this is, if fat people are bad, or being fat is bad for people to be, I assume Brett Cooper agrees with this, is it not good to argue that companies that make clothing that you wear when you exercise should include sizes for people who are most in need of exercise? Like, whenever this topic first came up, it was like this really popular argument to use against the healthy at any size activists, or whatever the phrase was like, why should they make workout clothes for people who are plus sized? They don't work out. And then obviously the world suddenly realized that you should think about things before you say it. And everyone was like, oh, wait, hold on. If we want people who are overweight to work out, we should probably want there to be readily available workout clothes for people who are overweight so they can wear clothes when they work out. I know this may sound crazy, guys, but you can't exactly wear jeans and like a jean jacket or whatever, or like a fucking sweater to the gym. Like, that's not really, it doesn't fly. You have to wear kind of specific clothes because, like, for example, jeans will rip up the usually leather upholstery that a lot of the, like, benches on many of the machines will have. So, like, there's a lot of reasons why you have to wear specific clothing and why you want to wear specific clothing for your own sake. So, like, well, I don't know. But, you know, they got their editor here to depict the opposition as a bunch of angry NPCs, so I guess they win.
The crying, tearing, screaming on TikTok, all the plus-size body positivity warriors are freaking the F out.
I'm gonna lose my freaking mind!
And while this may...
Well, okay, is it body positivity warrior to be, like, super in favor of workout clothes for plus-size people if you're advocating for them to have clothes to work out and become not fat with? Is that, like, if that's what, like, the, like, like, if that's what, like, the fat rights movement is, then I'm all on board. Like, isn't that what you claim to be in favor of? The hilarious thing is, these people's desperation to be as rude and mean as possible to fat people literally leads them to make arguments against people who are fat working out and not being fat anymore. It's like, it's genuinely embarrassing if anybody watches this and thinks about it for more than 2 seconds and isn't just, like, brain numbed with fat people are bad the entire time.
May have horrified people. He's exactly right. And this is not a new belief of his. This is exactly the same opinion that he expressed over a decade ago that got him pushed out of his own company. But we'll get to that later. So here's one of the viral tweets that I saw about him last week. This is from Popgrave.
I mean, yeah, probably should get you pushed out of your own company, saying, we're not going to make sizes for people who could be more customers for our business because I don't like fat people. Yeah, that is the kind of thing that should probably get you ousted from your business because, like, the other people who are, like, on the shareholder board and shit like that want the company to be profitable, and you're letting ideological hangups get in between you and the company making money. So, yeah. That's about right. Yeah, that kind of shit does tend to happen in the corporate world. Are you suddenly against capitalism, Brett Cooper? Are you against shareholders being able to oust CEOs from their own companies because their decisions don't align with the best interest of said company after like a vote among shareholders? Are you against that? Because that is, like, one of the core ideas behind capitalist businesses in America and all around the world. Like, that's happening right now in a million businesses as we speak. There are CEOs being ousted by shareholders. Like, that happens all the fucking time.
Founder Chip Wilson slams the company's diversity and inclusion efforts. Quote, I think the definition of a brand is that you're not everything to everybody. You've got to be clear that you don't want certain customers coming in. And I mean, it's harsh.
You don't want certain customers coming. That's actually, this guy literally just made a statement about how, like, he is bigoted towards fat people and doesn't want their business. And she's like, it's harsh, but pretty fucking based, you know? I don't know why I did, like, a Canadian or, like, Wisconsin accent for her there. She kind of has a Wisconsin accent.
Last line is harsh, but he's not wrong. You can't be everything to everyone. That dilutes the purpose of having a specific brand and making the products in the first place. Like, if you
What? It's a clothing brand. What, do they only make clothing for skinny people? Is that their brand? Like, only clothing for skinny people? Is it twink clothes? Is that what Lululemon is? I mean, I guess I do associate Lululemon with twink clothes, but, like, well, you know what? I think all fat people should just go full nudist in protest of this, like, of this thing, of, like, all of this shit. Like, I think, like, every fat person should just go full nudist and carry signs that say, like, expand, like, something that concisely states, like, why you're doing it, or in a burlap sack, even. And, like, because these people are, like, they make such a big deal about how they find fat people disgusting, I want to see them lose their minds about this and try to argue how actually it's bad. I want to see how they would, like, they respond to, like, You know, just escalating things a little bit, you know? I feel like that would be a good way to protest these people. Like, okay, so you don't think that we should have, like, clothes that fit us? Okay, we'll just not wear clothes then. I know it's illegal, but, you know, I'm sure there's a way to pull it off for the sake of, like, public, like, free speech or something. I'm sure there's a way. I'll put on clothes when you make clothes that fit me. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Like a sign that's, like, basically carrying a sign that says, I'll wear clothes when you make some that fit. This isn't even an issue just for fat people, by the way. You know that there's like a fair amount of people out there who are like just unusually tall, and it's hard to find clothes that fit them. I know this because my stepdad was like pretty unusually tall, and this made shopping for clothes for him really complicated, and it usually had to be ordered online or gotten from specific stores. And so that can be a fucking problem for a lot of people. Like, if you're really tall or really short, then you can absolutely run into issues with this kind of stuff. And so I wonder if they would extend that same level of that same standard. Although they do kind of. This is the top comment on the video. It's like a 5'4" person walking to a big and tall store and demanding petite clothing. Facepalm. So a big and tall store is explicitly a store made to fill in the gap of a lack of clothes for people who are, like, overweight and really tall. So when most stores already offer clothes that would fit somebody who's, like, 5'4", because that's, like, the average height for, say, a woman, then why... that's... it's not the same thing. It's not comparable, right? There's absolutely a, like, lack of clothing, workout clothing, for people who are overweight. That's the thing that's being argued here. And the thing that's being, and the argument that's being responded to by this founder of Lululemon.
Have you ever heard of a target audience or key demographic? That is not some newfangled term. That has been standard since the beginning of business and marketing and all of that.
I genuinely can't stand her videos because I know exactly what audience it's made for, and I used to be part of that audience when I was like 16 or 15, and it makes me hate my younger self when I watch this content because I know my younger self would have fallen for this shit hook, line, and sinker.
Or at least
well, not this video, but this lady's general method of pushing propaganda.
Be standard. It should still be standard. Somebody commented and said, love this. Lululemon is an athletic clothing company. It is not made for people contributing to the obesity crisis. Somebody else said, hear me out.
It's an athletic company, not a company making clothes for people contributing to the obesity crisis. It's athletic clothes. If fat people want athletic clothes, then clearly they want to work out and become not fat. What do you want them to do? Go to the fucking gym naked? This is actually brain rot. Like, anti-fat acceptance is brain rot. I think that's what I'm going to title the video. Fatphobia is brain rot.
Though athletic clothes are made for athletic people. Shocking.
What? Okay, hold on. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I don't understand fashion well enough here. Am I thinking the wrong thing when I hear the term athletic clothes? Are athletic clothes meant to be a style of clothes not made for working out in? Because when I hear athletic clothes, I think of, like, clothes you wear for working out. Does she think people... Yeah, does she think people are assigned athletic at birth? Yeah, good point, Halsor. One becomes athletic by working out, and one works out wearing athletic clothes. This editing is ass. It's meant to appeal to, like, the lowest common denominator.
The athleisure wearers don't want to hear that. But obviously, in our current era, this is controversial, and everyone in legacy media started covering this. Here's some headlines. Lululemon founders' remarks have some DEI experts calling for boycotts to combat the regressive values. Today's show, the Lululemon controversy over certain customers' comment explained. New York Post wrote, Lululemon founder Chip Wilson rips companies' diversity inclusion efforts, don't want certain customers coming in. Again, the line is harsh, but I respect it. And of course,
The line is harsh, but I respect... Why? Why do you respect it? Explain why it is stupid for a clothing brand that makes clothes for people to work out in to make clothes for people to work out in who you would argue need to work out the most. Like, do you think that people who are fat, like they've sealed the deal? If they want to work out, they've got to figure it out on their own. They don't get to have workout clothes. They can have workout clothes when they can fit them. Like, what is this? Like, I get that you people are evil and you tell everybody who suffers from any problem that they have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. A figure of speech that describes a thing that is literally impossible, by the way. Like, you guys know that, like, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps in the literal sense is impossible. And the term has been watered down so much that people forgot it's a reference for doing something impossible for yourself. Because you literally cannot physically pull yourself up by your bootstraps. The analogy they use when they say this, or when they, like, you know, hearken to that idea, they don't realize they're describing a thing that's physically impossible. I think a lot of them think it is. Like, I think a lot of them imagine pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, and they imagine, like, a dude doing that. Like, obviously, like, your bootstraps are the things on the back of your boot. You can't do that. Like, it's not a thing. It's describing an impossible task, but they describe it in this nonchalant way, like, that's what you need to do. It's a very covert way of saying, figure it out. I know it's impossible. Go fuck yourself. Do the impossible thing. I don't care what happens to you. It's a sly, backhanded remark when they tell you to do that. That, or they don't know what that it's not a possible thing, and they're just saying it because they've heard it a lot. If you were to kneel down and really try to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you're just going to fall face first into the ground. It's not possible, yeah. Or even if I think the idea is that you'd be laying on your back and trying to pull yourself up from your bootstraps, which is also impossible. It's not a thing. It's not a thing! Not every plus-size person is overweight. Some are bodybuilders. Thank you, Colton. Oh my God. I'm so glad you brought this up. I'm so glad you brought this up. I'm so fucking glad. Oh, I almost didn't remember to bring up this point. I thought of it while she was talking, and I almost completely dropped it. Let me show you footage of what the strongest man in the world looks like. This is the world's strongest man, who, for the record, was the physical inspiration for Thor in the, granted, this is World's Strongest Man in 2017. His name is also Thor, funnily enough, but his body and build, his type of body and build is what inspired the Thor from God of War Ragnarok. Here, let me see if I can find, all right, here, like, this is what the strongest dudes in the world look like, by the way.
The question was asked, who is the world's strongest man? Since then, this championship has been the final word on who is the strongest of them all. From Nice to Nassau, Malta to Morocco, each year they would come stronger than the year before. Bigger, bolder, better. Athletes that our world had never seen. Competitors who would push their bodies to the limit.
These people exist at sizes that Lululemon is saying they don't want to make stuff for. Plus size refers to people of this body type, too. Yeah, the Mountain is the guy I'm referring to, by the way. The guy who played the Mountain in Game of Thrones, yeah. It's like, the Mountain is plus-sized. Like, when people do, like, advocacy for inclusion of plus-sized, like, clothing, that includes people who are, like, the fucking Mountain from Game of Thrones. And you can try to frame, like, all plus-sized people as being, like, unathletic and fat, if that's what you want to try to do to push your hate. But the fact is that if anybody looks at, like plus size like advocacy, they're going to see that it's not just people saying that it's fine to be overweight and not take care of your body and you shouldn't care. Like, that's not what it is, no matter how much the right tries to say it. And if they ever hear actual fat acceptance rhetoric, they're going to realize pretty quick they've been lied to. At least I would hope. Xanderhall, also this also break Cooper's argument, which is archaeological discoveries, a bunch of statues that show they were plus-size women, especially some of them were from the Viking, Inca, and Caveman era. Okay, there's also the fact that, like, if you go back to any time prior to, like, the invention of fridges, being fat was possibly the best show of how much of an alpha chad you are in society you could possibly be. Like, one of the biggest inaccuracies, I would say, that Game of Thrones has, because you got that on my mind, is that Samwell Tarly, after years of living on the wall, doesn't lose a ton of weight, just from, like, not being able to get as much food as he would have been able to get when he was, like, in the house of a lord. Yeah, being overweight in times like that was seen as like the biggest flex ever. Like, holy shit, that guy's got skin on his bones. That guy's got some meat on there. That guy isn't going to be like going to bed starving tonight. Lucky bastard. Like, that was the kind of reaction people got to seeing a fat person like a couple hundred years ago. Like, our society has very much flipped around in regards to what beauty standards are seen as like worth attaining these days, right? I mean, hell, look at medieval knights. I actually watched a video recently that went over like artistic depictions from back when medieval knights were active and were doing their shit of what they looked like, and unanimously they're depicted as extremely slender, like twinks, like big time twinks. Medieval knights were depicted as in every drawing pretty much across the board, and that's surprising. That's quite surprising that, like, our body... Yeah, Scalagrim mentioned. Like, our standards for what is the ideal, like, heroic, top-tier, manly, or, like, ideal womanly body type has changed and morphed so much over the years, and right now it's most weighed against people who are overweight because we have such an overabundance of availability that the idea that you are overweight is seen as a moral failing, that you have fallen to temptation, that you have not resisted the temptation of practically unlimited always at your fingertips food that we have in our modern world, and that must be a moral failing on your part, and I should judge you for that. That's the way that these people pretty much operate. I told you I'm 6'7" before, so finding cheap clothes is a bitch, Lamau. If you're actually 6'7", that is wild, Pepper T21. But yeah, finding clothes that fit you, especially for cheap, has got to be hard if you're 6'7".
That headline is missing some context, and contrary to the mob's belief, he is actually extremely clear and reasonable in why the brand of Lululemon should not attempt to divert.
I always like how these conservative types can never, like, honestly engage with the left. You know, it's always a mob. It's always a parasite or vermin or a pest or a virus or, like, a mind virus. It's never... There are people who disagree with me. It's always, there is a sickness taking over. We must destroy the ideas that don't agree with ours. They can't be allowed to exist. There shouldn't be people who disagree with our worldview. They're demons. They're a pest. They're a sickness, a virus. Like, have you noticed that? Like, there's never any engagement with progressivism from the right that isn't referring to it as like a thing that needs to be crushed and destroyed. Yet meanwhile, they claim they're pro-free speech and they just want to have a conversation, and there needs to be discourse. There needs to be an open marketplace of ideas, but also wokeness is a mind virus that needs to be destroyed.
Diversify their target market. He slammed the whole diversity and inclusion thing, as well as its use of unhealthy and sickly people in ads, some of which now feature models whom he considers not inspirational. Reminds me of Jordan Peterson just tweeting, "Not hot." It's like, this is the same energy. But this...
Jordan Peterson got mega ratioed with that. Like, this got, like, one of the biggest ratios ever. He got fucking cooked for this one. I don't know what to say. Like, she's just kind of laughing about this CEO deciding he's not going to make clothing for fat people because, like, fuck fat people. It's just, the rest of this video is going to just be her kind of gloating about how this is an epic win for the right. Here, I'll speed it up a little bit. There's not going to be arguments. It's just going to be her, like, talking about how this is an epic win for the right or something.
It's like, this is the same energy. But this shouldn't even be considered bigoted or anything of the sort. Lululemon is a fitness brand. We might have forgotten that, considering that we just have 10-year-olds running around in their scuba jackets going to school in them. But they originated by creating...
Yeah, like I said before, if you don't want people to be fat, don't you want them to have clothes to work out in?
Good athletic wear for working out, for fitness-oriented women. Like, why would it be shocking that the founder wants them to actually market the product that he created towards people who are healthy and take care of their bodies and represent the true intentions of the brand?
Think about that. That's just dumb.
And he brought up the ads.
Yeah, what you just said was really dumb. That edit was actually really accurate because it was in response to what she just said. Think about what you just said for a second. That was really dumb. A clothing brand should want to expand their branding to a demographic of people who are most likely to work out. She's arguing that, like, fit people are more likely to work out, and sure, they're more likely to work out to maintain their fitness, but people who are not fit are also quite likely to work out because they've got work to do if they want to improve their body. So, like, make a product that they'll buy when they want to do that. And you'll make money, but he doesn't want to because he has an ideological opposition to fat people. And, Brett Cooper wants to demonize them too, because it's like there's this weird conservative idea that, like, if you're fat, then you must have succumbed to temptation and that makes you a bad person. So you're deserving of being seen as like a second-class citizen in their worldview. It's really disgusting. It's a big part of why I've always been put off by any form of fat-phobic content or humor, even from a pretty young age, like ever since 6th grade. And that, I told you the story behind that, but it's always just kind of put me off because it's both stupid, unproductive, and just cruel on a level that even in my most cringy, chuddy times, I couldn't really identify with.